Welcome to the Women Changing the World podcast, a podcast on a mission to bring you some of the most amazing women I know who are doing incredible things to generally make the world a better place. From corporate sustainability to straight up magic and everything in between, you'll meet the real life humans who are birthing the new. I'm your host, Liz Best, and I'm here to amplify the stories and voices of women who are changing the world. Hello, and welcome to another new episode of the Women Changing the World podcast. Today, I am sitting down to give you a behind-the-scenes peek at what has been happening for me this summer. I'm your host, Liz Best, and I have been doing some really interesting creative work. As you may or may not already know, I got to give my first TEDx talk this summer on how the leadership that created the climate crisis is not the leadership that will solve the climate crisis. And I'm in a really interesting liminal space where I gave the talk, it is done. It also doesn't live on the internet yet. And I wanted to bottle up some of my reflection on the process before the next stage of it taking on a life of its own. So in today's episode, you'll find my reflections on the TEDx process, demystifying how it actually happened, the timeline, the prep, the experience itself, what I would do differently, where I'm offering myself grace, and what's next for me creatively in my business. There are a few fun creative projects that have been percolating since before TEDx that I have now gotten to turn some more attention to that I'm feeling really, really excited about. So I'm so excited to share the behind the scenes with you, and I can't wait to share the talk with you when it is live on the internet. I am sitting down, this is early August, to record some reflections on my experience doing a TEDx talk recently. For those of you who don't already know, I gave a TEDx talk at TEDx Encinitas Boulevard in Encinitas, California, a few weeks ago. It hasn't come out yet. I'm recording this with the talk being complete, so it's a wrap. I gave it to a room full of 50-ish people, and I'm in this really interesting liminal space where it's real and it's done, but there's this whole other aspect of the experience that I will have at some point in the not too distant future of having this talk in a format and a version that I can share with people can share with people, that will live out in the world. And I wanted to very intentionally take a moment to reflect on the experience before the video comes out. I have this sense that once I see the full video of it, however it comes out, and I have no control over how it will come out, that is going to color my perception of the experience. I will notice the things that I don't love about the replay. I will notice things I may not love about the edit. Maybe I'll just be this is amazing and I love it, but I also am human and I'm sure there will be parts of it that might not be my favorite thing. And something really weird, I was having a conversation with someone at an event last night about how being witnessed in our goals and our dreams, I think can make them real in a different way. And so obviously I was witnessed by a room full of people giving this talk, but there's this potential for much more witnessing at a very different scale that could begin literally at any moment between now as I'm recording this and the end of September. That's going to be part of the experience too. And so I wanted to, again, take some time to capture and reflect on the experience that I actually had, securing this opportunity, planning for it, creating it, showing up for it, integrating it before whatever the experience is going to be of it living out in the world. So before I get into, I also just want to pause and reflect. I know we took a little mini summer pause over the last few weeks on the podcast, just taking some summer space. And as I'm sure you can imagine, I needed to focus a lot of my creative energy on this TEDx talk. But we're coming back this fall and we're going to hit 100 episodes, which is wild. I'm so excited. When I decided to bring the podcast back earlier this year, post my maternity leave, I was like looking at our episode count and the conversations I had gotten to have so far and was like, we're so close to 100. And I don't know if I have the long-term capacity, curiosity, time, budget to keep this podcast going indefinitely. And honestly, I still don't know the answer to that question. But I did know that I was like, I think we can make it to 100. I think we can hit 100 and that would feel like a really cool milestone. And like maybe we'll go past 100 and maybe we won't. I don't have to decide that right now. Right now, the decision is let's see what it could look like to get to 100 episodes this year. And we're so close. It's wild to say out loud. I got to have a conversation with an upcoming guest who is someone whose work I've admired for a really, really, really long time. And she reflected to me, she's like, I looked at your podcast and I saw that you've been doing this for 5 years. Congrats. And I was like, whoa, that is crazy. There have obviously been like pauses and restarts, but this podcast as of September will officially have been going for 5 years. And that's so cool. I'm so proud of that. I think it's been such a fun exercise, not only to get to build this body of work, this free resource for anyone who wants it, inspiring conversations with cool people doing cool things. But it's really been such a door opener for me. It's been such a cool opportunity for me to get to have real, interesting, deep conversations with people who I respect and admire, people in my world and people adjacent to my world and people whose work is informing my world. It has just been such a gift. I remember when I was first getting started, the person I was working with had said to me, if you're going to podcast, you need to podcast for the business that you want in 3 years, not the business that you have today. And at the time, I couldn't even totally imagine what business I wanted in 3 years. At the time, I was still dreaming up and setting things into motion for the very first Girls Club Mastermind, which is wild. I was doing one-on-one coaching, wanting to do more facilitation, wanting to do more speaking, wanting to do more writing. And when I think back, again, the doors that this has opened, it's very surreal and I feel very lucky. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff coming up here on the podcast this fall that I can't wait to share with you. So let's talk about TEDx. One of the main goal of this episode, I find, I would see for years and years and years, I feel like I would see often on LinkedIn, friends of friends mostly posting that they had done a TED or TEDx talk and just noticing that I was like, wow, that is so cool. How did they do it? And not necessarily taking the thought any further than that. I remember there was one person who was maybe in a community that I was in. I don't even remember this person's name, but I remember them offering I'm happy to help demystify this process for you. And I was like, ooh, and I reached out and I don't think I heard back. And so it's just been a thing that had been sort of sitting on a shelf for a long time. It's ooh, I would love to do that one day. I remember the first time I hired my first and longtime coach, Amelia Travis, to do business coaching with me when I was launching this business. She had given a TEDx talk and I was like, that is so cool. It's such a cool kind of credibility thing. And you all know that I'm all about choosing ourselves, and I will not deny it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing. So beginning of 2026, as I was coming back, I came back from maternity leave, technically full-time-ish last September, but was really just sort of catching up, digging out, tending to things. And I feel like it was really at the beginning of this year that I was like, okay, I actually have a little bit more brain space and energy to think about how I want to show up for my work this year. And the word that kept coming up for me about what I wanted work this year to feel like was art. I felt like I was missing the creative aspects of entrepreneurship, the birthing new programs and translating my teachings and beautiful design and writing. I want this year to feel like art. I want to connect with whether it's the art that was when I was performing stand-up comedy in person in San Francisco, or the art that was making the perfect playlist for teaching a yoga class, or the art of finding the perfect picture for the landing page for this thing that I'm really excited about. Like I really just had that intention of wanting this year my work to feel like art. And as part of that, a thing that was just becoming really clear to me was that I had this desire to really own my authority. I've been working as an executive coach for women in sustainability and impact, women founders who are birthing the new. I've been doing this work for, at that point, 6 years, now 6.5 years. And I just sort of had this moment of, I realized like, I know what I'm doing and I have an opinion about a lot of stuff. And like, I've seen a lot of things. I've put out so much content and work and thinking about like meeting this moment and what this moment is asking for us and how we actually create change in the world and how we actually create change in ourselves. And I was just like, it's time for me to really embody that. And not only embody it, but also have it be discoverable in a way and a place that for new people who are like new to me or new to my work, or even people who already know me who want to like understand better or explain the theory behind the magic. I was like, this needs to exist in a discoverable way outside of social media, outside of emails, like even a beautiful email. It's like these things are just like sort of flashes in the pan in the moment. And they're things I've worked really hard on. I've worked really hard on, and not in the bad way, not in a like gross way, but I feel like I have done really deep work to have a perspective that I bring to this work. I've learned from so many people. I've, done all the things. And I was just like, I want to bring it all together into ways and places that it can be found by people who are curious and interested. That was really like, again, the intention I came into this year with was like authority. And I mean that it's not like having all the answers or not being nervous. It's about settling into what I've been building toward for such a long time and saying it out loud and taking up maybe more space than feels comfortable. Everything that I'm about to tell you, from the TEDx talk and some of the things that I'm building right now, it all kind of lives inside this thread of making this year feel like art and owning my authority. So last year, winter solstice, I so serendipitously had a conversation. I'm part of a community called Dreamers and Doers. I actually interviewed the founder, Geisha, on the podcast. We'll link that in the show notes. It was a fun conversation. I'm in Dreamers and Doers. This woman, Lizzie McMillan, posts this book oracle reading around the holidays. And so literally the last call I took before I logged off, I had booked this book oracle reading with her. I knew almost nothing about her or why she was doing this. I vaguely knew that she'd been in the community for a long time. And I'd watched her go from working on Wall Street to being a 4-time author of fiction books. Her most recent book made a bestseller list. She's awesome, but I didn't know her. And we get on the call and I don't know what about it spoke to me. I think it was she's like, I have an uncanny ability to tell you how your book is going to come into the world. And I've been thinking about writing a book one day for a long, long time. It's not something I'm actively working on. And I was like, okay, I would love to know. If you have insight from whatever source on how my book may eventually want to come into the world, I would love to know it. And she told me in this call, she asked me a few questions and she was like, I really think that the path to your book is speaking. She said, for a lot of people, they write the book to open doors to speak. But what I'm getting for you is that speaking and sharing your ideas and sharing the work that you've been doing and being on stages and in rooms with people, she's like, I think that's the path to your book. That's the path to reaching more people. That's the path to having an impact beyond your immediate community. I genuinely think that for you, the place that you have an opportunity to focus your energy next isn't this buckle down, write a book proposal energy. It's how do you get on more stages and share your ideas with more people? And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so much more fun and so much more possible right now than trying to write a book proposal. At the time I had like a not even 1 year old. And I was just thinking, like, when would I have the time or the creative energy that I want to put toward a book one day to do that? But speaking, I love. Speaking is so fun. I was like, yeah. And it's a thing you can do and get paid to do on the way to writing a thing. So I was like, okay, seed planted. I'm very like interested in thinking about these two things as related. And she was like, well, I haven't even like really figured out the details of this thing yet, but I run an author cohort. She's like, I'm thinking about starting a speaker cohort for people who do want to like really get into speaking in a more meaningful way. And so if you're interested in that, let me know and I can send you the details when I figure them out. And I was like, yeah, I would like totally love to be part of the beta. I'm very curious about this. And yeah, fast forward a couple months, she got the beta together. Within it, we had the opportunity to choose like a track or a goal. And one of the tracks or goals was to get on a TEDx stage. And it's a 6-week program. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that's a thing I've sort of low key been thinking about for a very long time. I like feel like I like technically know how to do it, but I don't feel like I really know how people actually do it. And Lindsay is someone who has done, I think, 4 TEDx talks. So I was like, okay, that's my goal. And I showed up for the cohort and I like did the homework and did the things, even in like a busy life season. And what was so cool about it, and you probably heard me talk about this before, is like, I think joining programs like this and having other people who have shared goals, even if they're not the same goals, accountability to like actually do things week over week to like move forward towards your goal. And then like insider knowledge or expertise, like it's so helpful. It's so impactful. I'll be honest, I was not like a straight A student in this cohort. Again, life had a lot going on, but I did do most of the homework week over week. And that included 1 week identifying TEDx opportunities and actually applying to one. And one of the biggest pieces of information that Lindsay shared in the cohort that was like a big aha for me and then I also was like, well, duh, is that often, yes, there's the application process. And sometimes people get onto stages like this strictly through an application process. Like that's very much a way that things work. That's like the front door, I'm using air quotes here, of how you land these opportunities. But there's also often a side door, and that involves like a relationship with the people who are organizing, because it's real people who are organizing. And so that was like sort of a light bulb for me, because one of the TEDx opportunities that I found when I was looking was the one I ended up eventually doing. And so I didn't see anywhere to like apply to join. I didn't know if they had the whole thing like baked. But I found the organizer on LinkedIn and I reached out cold, sent a DM and was just like, hey, I see you're the organizer of this. That's so cool. And said something else about his work. And I was like, are you by any chance still accepting applications for speakers for this event? It was a TED Countdown event, which is a climate focused event, obviously like in San Diego, where I lived for many years and have a significant community. And he wrote back and he was like, yep, we're still accepting speaker applications, sent the link. And I was like, okay, here we go. And so for a lot of TED events, I don't know about all of them, but you just submit both little application of you and what you're about and da-da-da. And then also a video of you giving like a short version of your TED Talk. And so I believe for this one, I had to record maybe like a 4-minute version of my TED Talk. And honestly, for like, I think a week or two, this was like kind of hanging over me of like, okay, I need to sit down. I need to write this down. I need to like record it. I need to create space. I'm no longer in the office with the beautiful backdrop. And so it's like, I need to create a space in my house where I like look like TED-y to record this. And so I was kind of like, okay, I said I was going to submit this. I told this guy, like, keep an eye out for my application. I need to go sit down and do it. So I like, thankfully, my partner took my son to the playground. I had like a totally quiet house for literally like 30, 45 minutes. And I just sat down in a corner with like a fake tree and was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to record this. I'm going to do it. It was a Sunday afternoon. I remember so clearly. So I recorded it. I hit submit on the application. We were actually going out to dinner that night. So like got dressed, got ready, like kind of tried to put it out of my head, went out to this like really awesome dinner in San Francisco. And after we had paid the bill and we're about to walk out, I checked my email and I found out that I had gotten accepted. It was wild. It was so fast to get accepted. I was like, it's still in, I think, the 6-week cohort. I don't even think we'd like finished it yet. And I think we were headed into graduation. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. I am giving a TEDx talk. And at the time, I think it was end of April, very late April, maybe. And I was like, okay, this is happening in less than 3 months. So I had less than 3 months to take this idea that I had done a 4-minute talk about and turn it into a 15 to 18-minute TED Talk. And that was like an exciting and a nerve-wracking exercise. I'll be honest, I definitely procrastinated for the first month. Of like really, I was like looking for examples and like paying attention to things that I wanted to weave in. And I remember doing like a very rough run through off the top of my head that was just like not good at all. But thankfully, like as part of the process, there are like kind of accountability, like milestones built in. So you do a series of run throughs in the final, I'd say like 6 weeks before the talk. So the first month, I really did not do much. I was sort of like letting it percolate. I was coming off of being sick for like forever. I was traveling, and this was just like in the back of my head. And then I had gone on vacation. I came back from vacation, and then I was like, okay, now it's like 6 weeks away and I need to be doing like real run throughs, like with the organizer and getting feedback. And so I got to get this talk has to become a thing. And I realize I'm talking a lot about the talk. I will tell you what it's about. I also, when it does come out, whenever that is, would love for you to actually go watch it. But I want to give you like enough to be curious and intrigued without me like spoiling the whole thing. So the premise that I had pitched was the leadership that created the climate crisis is not the leadership that will solve the climate crisis. And my central argument is that the moment that we're in, the climate crisis, is a collective action problem. And the reason that we have this collective action problem is a lack of leadership. And that the leadership that we need in order to actually meet this moment is relational intelligence. It's matriarchal leadership. It's feminine energy. It's the way that elephants lead herds through drought and disaster. It's the way trees communicate underground. It's the way Jacinda Ardern led New Zealand. And there's like so many more examples. But that's what the talk is about. It's about climate leadership. It's about the climate crisis, but it's really about feminine leadership as the most powerful technology we have for navigating this moment. Here are some of the things that were especially fun about the process of putting it together. If you've ever been to one of my workshops, you know I love a beautiful slide. It was really, really fun to pull together like a TED-style slide deck and design a visual story for the argument in sort of my brand. Gosh, I rehearsed so many times. I had like the live rehearsals with the organizer, both virtually in late June, I think a couple times in June, July, and then also had an in-person run through in San Diego in July in the week leading up to the talk. But outside of that, like I rehearsed with my sister. I rehearsed with my husband. I rehearsed with friends. I rehearsed in person. I recorded myself saying the talk and then listened to myself saying the talk. I practiced with the slides. I practiced without the slides. I made myself note cards. I've never rehearsed anything that much ever in my life. Even when I was doing stand-up comedy, I would like sometimes have it all written out, more have like sort of the general themes and like a note stock. And I would run through it a few times, like maybe 5 or 6 times, but not that much. And I'll be honest, I think one of the things that I'm the most nervous about now, like knowing that the recording is coming out, is that I didn't have it like 1,000% memorized on the day. And I do think that was one of the biggest pieces of advice I got from other people who'd either done or helped people do TED Talks, was to have it fully memorized. And I think I just wish that I had it totally locked in. Like I did have access to notes as I was going. It would have been cool to have it fully memorized. And also so much grace for myself, right? Like I was running a business, launching a cohort in GCC, being a mom, traveling, finishing this like really in-depth long form piece that I'll talk about in a little bit. And like the time that I had to prep was the time that I had to prep. I ran through it as much as I felt like I could possibly run through it. And I had to make peace with that. It's still a thing that I'm making peace with. I think it's important to name because I know we all have voices in our heads that say all sorts of things to us. And I'm just not going to pretend that there's not a voice in my head that's like, you really should have had that whole thing fully 100% memorized. And I also know that if and when I give another TED Talk, and I do have another idea for another TED Talk one day, that will be my goal for myself, is to have it like fully 100% memorized. It was really cool to get to do this and have this experience in San Diego. For those of you who don't already know, I started my corporate sustainability career in San Diego. I went to grad school in San Diego. It's always felt like a home to me. And so it was really meaningful to get to like go back to like where I started working really in climate. I mean, I did a little bit of journalism on climate before that, but I feel like I really started my climate career in San Diego. And I was so excited going into it. Like, what a cool excuse for a business trip to do this thing. I don't think I realized how much the talk itself was sort of hanging over me until it was done. And then I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I could go jump in the ocean and drink an IPA and all the things. But it was really special to get to be in a place that I love, where people I love are already, in addition to the people who came with me, to get to do this. I'd love to talk about the day itself. So the event was like a half day, kind of evolved along the way of what the day was going to look like, but it was like a half day. It was the morning. So it was like, 18 minutes on stage. And I'm like, what do I even say about this? Like, it was wild. It was wild to like wake up in the morning and like pretty early and get ready. I went and got my hair done so I didn't have to do it. Was like, do I practice? Do I not practice? I think this is baked, but maybe I should practice one more time. I really just focused the morning of on being like embodied in my body, taking deep breaths, being present. And I think the magic of the experience wasn't just the talk. I mean, giving the talk was really cool, being up on that stage, sharing my work, my thinking, the talk, embodying the talk. Like, it was so cool. But it was also so cool that whole day. I mean, my very first career coach from my first corporate job just came, saw that I was doing this on LinkedIn and showed up. And she was there like so before like the dreams that I have now were even visible above ground. And so for her to be there was so special. A couple people who've like come to GCC events and who have been connected with online but had never had a chance to meet in person came together, which was so cool. It was so cool to get to meet them. I had a friend from grad school who came, one of my first teammates from my corporate job. My partner was there. My sister was there. A few other people came to celebrate that afternoon. And it was just like really so special. It honestly feels boring to talk about in the way that I feel like a good relationship is boring to talk about, because you're just like, it was good. It was really good. And it was really cool. I think as much facilitation as I do online, and as much as I think the magic of online is like so real, the ability to like see people leaning in and nodding and engaging with content without a mute button in a room, it was cool. I mean, it's why I love stand-up comedy. It's definitely why I feel like I have more speaking in my future. Like, it was just really awesome to get to do that. In the spirit of like full transparency and vulnerability, there are things I would do differently. And I know I mentioned the memorization thing. The one other thing that I, in hindsight, know that I held back on, and partially it was like a capacity thing, and I think probably partially like a taking up space thing. Like, I really wish I had done more personal outreach to other people to be in the room. I mean, I think partially it was like, initially going to be a full Saturday in San Diego in the middle of July. And I was like, who wants to spend a full Saturday in San Diego in the middle of July in a community center, like inside in a dark room? That was like a real thought that I was having, even though I was like, I totally want to be there. I'm so grateful for everyone else who wants to be there. But I was having a hard time making that ask of people. I really do wish that parts that were in my control and parts that weren't, like I didn't know the full vision of how the event would end up until it was like pretty close to the event. But I wish I had made more time to do more personal outreach. Just, there's so many people I love in San Diego who would have been so special to have like be there or be part of the celebration. And I was just so deep in sort of prep mode and lifing that I didn't send as many invitations to be a part of like the overall experience as I wish I had. And it's funny because that's like totally also what like this talk is about relational leadership. And I just wish that I had had or made more time for that type of outreach. And I don't mean that to in any way minimize the people who were there for me, because that was awesome. And I think just like a loving note to my future self and to you, if like you're in a similar moment and you're like weighing, how much space you want to take up and inviting people to be a part of like a milestone thing that like may seem kind of inconvenient, make the invitation. Let people decide for themselves if they want to like show up for it or not. I think that's the thing that I wish I had done, is just been a little bit more explicit in making the invitation and letting other people say like, yes, I'm in, or no, I'm not. So that was TEDx. There were so many surprises along the way. I actually didn't know that the event was being live streamed. It was. I would have invited you to watch it. But yeah, now I'm waiting. I'm in this weird in between where I poured all this like intellectual and creative energy into making this thing. My argument, the story, so much research, these slides, like it's all in there. And now it's like totally out of my control. I have no control when it drops. No control over when it drops. It could be next week. It could be the last day of September. I mean, I will find out like when you find out. And it's like both a relief and it's a little bit disorienting. Like that feeling of like the work is done and it's just going to make its way to the world in its own time. As I'm in this like liminal space and I'm sort of waiting, there's other stuff that's been percolating beneath the surface that I feel like I was kind of describing them to a couple of friends as like, I feel like I have all these fun creative ghosts that have been hanging out with me, all these like things that want to be born into the world. And was like, nope, I'm not doing anything with you until I get to the other side of this talk. Like this talk is getting all my creative energy. But now that I'm on the other side, I have picked up two things that I'm feeling really excited about. One is, for lack of a better term, is the manifesto. Around the same time as I did Lindsay's speaker cohort, I also did this program with a coach, Ellen Donnelly, on intellectual property for entrepreneurs. Specifically, her whole thing is about the idea of being like an authority entrepreneur. And when you are like a service-based consultant, coach, whatever, and knowledge is like a significant part of what you sell. Her whole thing is like, how do you identify the one big idea behind your work so you can really own it and build your authority around it? And in hindsight, was like so perfect that I was like really doing this work on like, what is my one big idea and how do I distill it into like a 4,000 word essay? And at the same time as I was thinking about and showing up for this TEDx opportunity. So these two pieces have really been in conversation with each other in an interesting way, and where the TEDx talk itself needed to meet the room that it was in. It was for people who cared about climate, but needed to be able to like work for a general audience. The manifesto gets to be like exactly written for like my people, which means in some ways it can be more broad than climate. I mean, climate is obviously intertwined in literally everything, but in some ways it can be more broad. And in other ways it can be more narrow in terms of like who it is that I'm speaking to in this. And I started drafting this back in March. It's taken months for it to come to life in the way that I wanted. I really wanted to like do this justice. And it pulls together so much of the things that have like informed my work over the past 6.5 years. It's everything from like Adrienne Marie Brown to, like real self-care and burnout and good girl conditioning and Haudenosaunee governance and matriarchal futures and some of the things I talked about in the TEDx talk, collective action problems and 17-ish years of work in corporate responsibility. Yeah. And I just got to the point of finally, I feel like the draft of the manifesto was sitting at 80-90% for a long time. And I just got to the point of sharing it with like some close friends for some feedback and review. So it'll be percolating. It'll be out in the world very, very soon. I'll definitely be sure to share it when it drops. If you're listening to this and you're not already on my mail list, please go to girlsclubcollective.co to get on the list and get it when it drops, or Elizabeth Best with an S, ELISABETH best.com to join my mail list. In either of those places, that you'll be in the loop for when it comes out. But that's feeling like really exciting to have a written version of this. The other thing that has been bubbling for me is thinking about, okay, I've written this manifesto. I've given this TEDx talk. What does this actually mean for the work that I do? Because the work that I do in Girls Club Collective is so aligned with both of these things, but I also have been sensing that there's a deeper layer and that I am like really, really ready to go deep. And so the other piece that I've been working on that I actually just shared out loud to a group of people for the first time this morning, it does not exist in the world yet. I am like actively shaping and speaking it into existence, is the next iteration of like, if you've been in our world for a long time, you know, like the Girls Club, we call it a magic mind, which is a mastermind container. It's been on pause for a while, for like a year and a half now. And I think a version of that format of an intimate cohort of 8-ish people where we can go really deep on these topics, on these themes, on embodied relational leadership, on showing up for our next level, on how we connect with our intuition and lead through liminality and design and hold containers and really show up differently in the world to actually create the future that so many of us are building toward. That is what I'm calling it, the threshold. That is what the threshold is going to be. So I'm still figuring out the details. The things I know are like, it will be a 5-month experience. We're going to do deep work. We're going to start in October, and like the cohort, the like Magic Mind experience will run probably through the end of February. I think we're going to go on an in-person retreat, which I'm so excited for. I'm in like Palm Springs, Joshua Tree area, probably very end of January, beginning of February. It'll include things like 12 months of membership inside GCC. So there's support after the super like intimate cohort component, some one-on-one coaching with me so we can really make the absolute most of the experience so you can live into like your next chapter, your goals. Just the way that this is all coming together is feeling so aligned. It's been really fun. I feel like the few people that I've like actually shared more like color around this with have been like, oh my God, yes, this sounds amazing. Sign me up. I'm so there. So just noting that like that's a thing that's coming. And again, I'm still very much in process of figuring out the details. It does feel really exciting to be like entering into this next phase of my work as like a coach, facilitator, teacher, space holder, community leader, and having this coming to like kick off right around Scorpio season. It's feeling really juicy and good. It's also feeling vulnerable. Like I haven't really offered this or anything like this before. And yes, every time I come up with a new thing that I really want to do, that I really want to offer in the world, I still get nervous. I still have the like, does anyone want to come to my party feelings? But this time I feel like alongside those feelings, I'm also just feeling like so excited. This just really, really feels like the work that I've been building toward, and such a cool culmination of the intentions that I set for this year. Work as art, stepping into authority. So again, I'm recording this for you like on the other side of giving this TEDx talk, which was such an expression of those intentions. I still have other parts of this work that are percolating that will come out this year, but the talk's not out yet. The manifesto is not published yet. The threshold hasn't started. It doesn't have a landing page. It doesn't have a sign-up link. Like I'm in the middle of all of it. And I also am feeling on my own threshold of so much of this coming to life. So wanted to bottle this up for you as just a little update on what's happening over here. I'm so appreciative of you for tuning in, for listening. There's so much to look forward to coming up on the podcast this fall. I can't wait for you to meet my next set of guests. And I so appreciate you being here and listening and being a part of this like extended constellation of really cool humans doing really cool things to build a better future. We need each other now more than ever, and I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Women Changing the World podcast. Please rate and review the podcast wherever you're currently listening to it, and don't forget to subscribe for future episodes. You can find me on Instagram at liz.best, that's lis.best, and you can find Girls Club Collective at girls_club_collective. You can also find us on LinkedIn by searching for Liz Best, that's my name, LISBEST, and Girls Club Collective. Join our mail list by visiting the Girls Club Collective homepage and scrolling down to the bottom. You'll be in the loop on upcoming events, retreats, and opportunities to make magic with us, and you'll also receive a monthly love note from my heart to your inbox. I am so excited to keep in touch.